We're introduced to our female lead, Kaylen, who's clearly had too much to drink. As she walks in the snow, whiskey in hand, she sings loudly to herself about how her heart is burning and how she feels like she's flying. Just when we think she's about to pass out in the cold, something in the thick snow catches her eye. It's a trail of small footprints. She gets curious, wondering what kind of cute animal could have made them. At that exact moment, a little fox is panicking nearby. It's stuck in a hunter's trap and trembling with fear. The poor thing remembers how its mother was once taken by hunters and thinks it might be next. It's trying so hard to escape, but suddenly it senses someone behind. In the next moment, she stumbles closer, sees the fox, and says out loud that it's a fox, as if she's discovered treasure. From the audience's point of view, we can already feel the tension rising. The fox, crying and terrified, thinks it's going to be skinned alive. The stories from the elders echo in its mind. Yet, unexpectedly, she bends down and calmly removes the trap from its leg. She then lifts it up and gets excited, wondering if foxes can actually cry. The little one is still unsure whether she's safe or not, but her next move really throws it off. She decides to check if it's male, holding it up and inspecting it closely. With all seriousness, she tries to find its private parts, even pushing its lower side toward her face. She can't find anything and loudly says so, which shocks the fox. It jumps out of her hands in pure panic and hides behind a tree, watching her carefully. It notices her strange smell, heavy alcohol mixed with something it can't recognize. From behind the tree, it wonders if she actually lives in the mountains, because she's unlike anyone it's ever met. Then out of nowhere, she begins crying. She talks to herself again, saying even animals hate her. Her words are slurred and full of sadness, as if something inside her just broke. The fox watches quietly, starting to feel guilty. It thinks maybe she's crying because it scratched her and she's in pain. But before it can do anything, she runs off in frustration, still shouting and sobbing. Now determined to return the kindness, the fox makes a firm choice. It grabs some ginseng, places it in its mouth, and heads into town to find her. Mr. Bay Crow had said she lived nearby. However, as it arrives, it's surprised to see the area looking strangely empty, even though the elders had always warned that the village was dangerous. We follow the little fox as he enters the village, a piece of ginseng still clutched in his mouth. He wanders around, hopeful that she will appreciate the gift. However, he's unaware that someone has begun to track his tiny paw prints. Despite going from place to place, there's no sign of the strange woman. Consequently, he figures she might live nearby and starts checking the courtyards. Just when we think things are going smoothly, trouble shows up. In a narrow alley, 3 children surround him. One of them grabs him by the tail and lifts him upside down. They're thrilled, calling him a cub and talking about roasting him like in cartoons. Before he can even process what's happening, one rushes off and returns holding a red-hot poker. What follows next is the kind of thing that makes you gasp in horror. The child with the poker excitedly talks about hearing the fox scream, saying his parents won't mind since it's wild. As if that wasn't enough, one of them suggests smashing him a little first. They hit him softly, then harder, and finally the little guy goes completely quiet. Just when we think it's over, one of them talks about burning his fur. At this point, he's confused and hurt, wondering why humans would do this to him when he's done nothing wrong. Thankfully, the moment takes a turn. She suddenly shows up. Our girl kicks the boy with the poker and yells at them. Furious, she chases them off, shouting at the top of her lungs. The kids run away crying, while she blames their parents for not teaching them right. The fox, bruised and shaken, snuggles into her arms with relief. From our view, it's heartwarming to watch him conclude that she must be the best human alive. She grins to herself, calling madness the best way to deal with foolish people. With that, she picks him up and begins walking towards the mountains again. He notices the path and realizes where they're going, but can't stop wondering why she hasn't removed the ropes yet. Soon, they arrive at a quiet little camp with firewood and a pot already set up. She drops him gently near the fire and starts lighting it. At first, he doesn't know what's going on, but things get confusing very fast. She suddenly turns with a strange look on her face and tells him she's too stressed and needs to let off some steam. She even calls him over, saying they should have close contact with the fire. Now, we're just as stunned as the fox, who's frozen with wide eyes, thinking, what is even happening right now? Now the mood shifts. Lee plops the fox onto a small chair of its own, still bound by the ropes the children had tied. She declares that she won't harm him and just needs to vent before letting him go. Her dramatic shouting catches the fox off guard. He still can't understand her words, but tries hard to follow her mood. She shouts about how she wants the world to explode, and how from now on, she's embracing madness. From our view, it's both hilarious and sad, watching this whiskey-drenched woman pouring her soul out to a confused forest animal. She begins ranting about the cruelty of being human. Animals don't go to school, she says, lucky to be free from that pain. She talks about how she studied hard, believing she'd have a bright future, only to find out that without wealth or power, hard work means nothing. Her frustration boils over as she cries, drinks more whiskey, and starts hurling curse after curse into the air, condemning the world that crushed her dreams. She says her work was stolen, that no one defended her, and that society trampled on her because she was poor and weak. Eventually, her anger drains out, replaced with quiet tears. She wipes them behind her glasses as she whispers her final truth. She has nothing left. No love, no dreams, no faith, not even her creations. Her family brushed her pain aside, pressuring her to marry and have children like it was her only worth. She questions why she should even marry when there are no good men left, calling herself a shrew as she sobs harder. The fox watches, feeling deeply moved, despite not grasping her words. It stretches its small paws toward her, wanting to help, but unsure how to show it. That little act gets her attention. She gently lifts him up from the chair and cradles him, still tied but safe in her arms. She stares at him, surprised, asking if he still doesn't hate her after hearing everything she just said. Lee poured her broken heart out to the little fox, not expecting comfort, but in his small, shy way, he gave it. She cried, cursed, and confessed her pain, while the fox, still tied up and unable to understand her words, simply reached out. That was enough for her. Now, warmed by his tiny embrace, she hugs him tightly and tells him something no one else ever has. He's better than most people she's met. He isn't sure if she truly understood his gesture, but her tears have stopped, and that makes him hold her tighter. She smiles gently, admitting he's the first to ever hold her after she broke down like that. Her words are soft and genuine. For years, she's been alone in her sadness, and now she finally says thank you to someone who stayed close in her darkest moment. The fox, though still just a cub, thinks about the ginseng he wanted to give her. But the weather turns quickly. The snowstorm comes down harder than expected, the cold biting at his little paws. Lost in the swirling white and unfamiliar with the path, he tries to press forward but begins to fade. His small body sinks deeper into the snow, his vision dimming. Regret weighs heavy. He couldn't even give her that gift. When his eyes flutter open again, he's shocked. She's right there. Lee Yuanye. She had found him again, wrapped him in a warm blanket, and even lied down beside him to keep him warm. He squeaks in surprise, but she only grins, relieved that he's alive. She jokes that wild animals really are strong and tells him she wasn't even planning to come out again. She had just been frustrated, unsure what to write, and now here they were. Again. For the third time, she saved him. He licks her cheek in gratitude before snuggling into the blanket, feeling safe beside her. As he drifts off to sleep, he promises himself that one day he'll pay her back. Meanwhile, Lee watches him and lets out a tired sigh, wishing men were more like this little fox, soft, affectionate, and comforting, not cold or arrogant. Suddenly, an idea clicks. Why not use this little fox as the model for her new male lead? With a wicked grin forming on her face, she mutters about setting her own rules now. They crushed her dreams, so she'll rise again and make them pay. The next morning, the fox wakes up alone in the woods, still wrapped in the blanket. Confused, he tumbles a few times trying to run, tripping over the cloth. He doesn't know yet, but the female lead has left the village. Still, he makes a promise, to grow up into a handsome, strong adult fox so he can one day return the favor to the woman who saved him 3 times. We're taken a year into the future, and it's amazing how much has changed. Our little fox has grown into a strong, handsome one with soft, shiny fur and impressive survival skills. Moreover, he has been sneaking into the village often to listen to people talk, and as a result, he has learned a lot about human language. He feels that he's just one step away from finally returning the favor to the one who saved him. So, without wasting time, he heads to the sculpture of the mountain god and calls out his name. As if waiting for this moment, the mountain god's spirit wakes up with a calm smile and greets him, holding a cup with a lid in his hand. He remembers the fox and realizes he's grown, then asks if he's here to make a wish. When the fox says yes, the spirit is surprised because it's been a long time since anyone made a wish like this, especially to repay a human. The fox confirms this is exactly what he wants, to become a good man so he can find her again. The mountain god then asks what kind of man would be good enough, confessing that he hasn't kept up with trends and the ideal man in his time might not be what humans want now. Luckily, the fox has thought ahead. He brings in an older crow who has traveled to many cities and seen all kinds of people. Without wasting time, the crow shares his knowledge. According to him, the perfect man should have strong arms, firm abs, and a tall body. In addition, he should have eye-catching hair, and the fox's current fur color is just perfect for that. Then comes the part that makes the fox's ears twitch. The crow says he must also have a big part of his body. Feeling a little shy, he quietly asks if the size really matters, but the crow gives him a serious scolding. He says if the fox truly wants to repay the favor, he must be ready to give up his innocence. Although caught off guard, the fox agrees nervously, not very confident but still determined. In the next scene, we hear more from the crow who shares his sharp observations. From what he's seen in the city, any man who has the features he listed earlier, along with a warm smile, can easily win over many women. He even asks if the fox doesn't want his savior to smile again. That question hits hard, and he remembers the way she cried before, so right then, he makes up his mind. He tells the mountain god to turn him into what the crow described. The transformation begins, but it's not smooth. First, the crow complains he's not muscular enough. The god tries again, only to be told there's too much body hair. On the third try, the shape finally matches the crow's vision. The god breathes out, clearly worn out but happy with the result. The crow is thrilled by how great he looks now, while the fox studies his new skin in shock. He admits he feels chilly without fur, and shyly asks if he now counts as a good man. The crow brags that his advice never fails, and the mountain god agrees, pleased with the outcome. We're then reminded how rare it is for animals to repay humans nowadays. Long ago it happened more often, but wild creatures and humans don't meet much anymore. As thanks for the ginseng, the mountain god gives him a special power that will help him reach his savior. However, he warns that he must return quickly after repaying the favor, or there could be trouble with his human body. Still, he's encouraged to enjoy the human world while he can, even though it's flawed, because it's also full of wonder. The fox thanks the tired mountain god and prepares to leave. He scolds the crow for staring at him, trying to cover himself, but the crow insists there's nothing wrong with admiring his own artwork. Turns out, the crow had even helped search for her. And now, after all the waiting and preparation, the fox finally sets out to find her. He sits in the back of a car, holding a bag full of fresh ginseng, eyes wide at the tall city buildings, hopeful that he will soon return the favor he's held in his heart for so long. At Deepening, the busiest novel publishing company in the country, the usual chaos is in full swing. A worker excitedly points out that Kaylen has ranked 7th on the top-up list, showing off her picture in a book. Another asks if she's from the literature department, and the first confirms, yes, she was part of the artistic youth circle. But Kaylen wasn't always so noticeable. They agree she used to have a low presence. The conversation turns sour as they begin criticizing the writers from her old department, calling them dull. One of them laughs and mentions how Kaylen went to the mountains last winter and came back changed. Now she wears bright clothes, and while they admit she looks beautiful, one says he doesn't like her because she's too aggressive. Just then, Kaylen steps out of the elevator. She's heading toward the door beside them, but their words catch her ears. One even calls her unruly, saying she must be a squanderer and that she'll have trouble getting married. Another chimes in that he prefers Maya, the top-ranking author, because she seems pure and looks like she'd be a good wife. He says women should be gentle and not materialistic. Kaylen, halfway past them, can't ignore it anymore. She turns with a sharp gaze and cuts between them, asking coldly if he's choosing a wife for himself. The sudden appearance stuns both men. She pulls down her glasses slightly, inspecting them in silence. Then, with a smirk, she drops a line that stings. "Thank you for hating me. Filthy people only mess up my money luck." She walks off, leaving them stunned and annoyed. The one with the book tries to argue that he's her senior, but his coworker hushes him, reminding him that Kaylen is a profit-bringing writer now. She reaches her destination and knocks. No reply, but she enters anyway. Clearly irritated, she demands to know what the vague critique about the male lead not feeling right even means. The editor inside says nothing at first, just smoking and staring at his file. Internally, he admits Kaylen has changed. She's fiercer now and even profitable, having shifted from traditional novels to online literature. On the folder in his hands it says, "Mystery and Urban Pet Boyfriend, Doggy." Without looking up, he asks if she's ever owned a dog. The question catches her off guard, and she has no answer. That silence says everything. He finally breaks it down. Her switch to online literature was smart. Stories about non-human boyfriends work well for readers afraid of things like marriage and pregnancy. He points out, rather bluntly, that while male leads as vampires, deities, or fairies are believable because no one's ever seen them, a male lead who's a dog but doesn't act like one? That's too familiar to fool readers. And just when we think he might offer help, he throws the responsibility back at her, saying character issues are for authors to solve. He even reminds her of the promise she made when she applied for the transfer, to surpass Maya, one of the top writers. Though his tone is dismissive, his words hit the mark, and even though she hates to admit it, she knows he's right. She leaves boiling inside, muttering about how irritating he is and questioning how someone so frustrating became the chief editor in the first place. As she storms away, frustration builds into determination. She knows the rules of the game. Without passing his test, there's no advertising, and without advertising, there's no ranking, meaning no money, no fame, and worst of all, no revenge. She's still fuming when she pauses, takes a breath, and reminds herself of the bigger goal. Not just to outdo Maya, but to expose the powers behind her, the ones who support plagiarism and manipulation. Then, as if fate is mocking her, she passes a bright billboard flaunting her stolen work. It stings, yet strangely fuels her. She realizes her work has value. It can earn money and attention, even if in the wrong hands. And just when we think she might lose hope, she smiles coolly, her anger settling into quiet resolve. The real plan isn't just revenge. It's a comeback, and she vows that the real show will start when she climbs into the top 3. 3 days later, we find Kaylen out in the evening, visibly upset as she glares at her phone. A message from one of the writers criticizes the start of her story, calling it old-fashioned and saying it needs fixing. This makes her feel targeted, especially since he never paid her any attention before she broke into the top 10. Feeling cornered and misunderstood, she looks up at the sky as if begging it for answers. She had come to the dog park hoping to find some inspiration, but it's empty. No people, no dogs. Just when she thinks the trip was a waste, she spots a corgi in the field and carefully approaches it, speaking gently. Unlike her usual distant tone with people, her voice is soft and kind. However, the dog doesn't seem to appreciate it. It turns around and barks loudly, clearly warning her to back off. Just when things feel tense, someone steps between them. It's the fox, only now he's a man. One intense look from him is enough to send the dog fleeing, and she thanks him with a trembling voice, still startled. He seems pleased to see her again, and as she stares up at him, something about his face feels oddly familiar. She quickly brushes the thought aside, insisting she would definitely remember a guy built like this. Meanwhile, he can barely focus. He's panicking internally, wondering if he should give her the ginseng, his thoughts clouded by nerves and excitement. She notices his blushing face, but her attention quickly shifts to his towering height and unusual hair. He reaches out with a bag of ginseng, trying to say something. but nothing comes out. She notices and asks if he said anything, her voice uncertain as his presence begins to overwhelm her. He tries again, but still no sound. That's when he realizes in horror that he can't speak. Memories flash through his mind. The chat with the crow, sneaking onto the bus. Yet now he can't even form a word. She eyes the bag and guesses he might be mute and trying to sell her herbs. Apologizing, she says she doesn't do well with warming food and politely walks away, grateful but firm. He rushes after her, holding out the ginseng again and trying to stop her. Sadly, his words are still lost, because he isn't speaking a language she can understand. She respectfully tells him she's not interested in buying, adding that just because he's good-looking doesn't mean he can force her to make a purchase. To her surprise, he suddenly bursts into tears, clearly desperate to get a message across. She feels the pressure rising. "Seriously? Who told you to sell your goods with that face?" she blurts out, flustered by his emotional response. Desperate to explain, he starts using gestures to communicate. He tries to show that he dug up the ginseng himself just to give it to her, and that if she doesn't like them, he's willing to do something else instead. But the signals go completely over her head. What she interprets is something tragic. "I'm begging you. If I don't sell them, the people behind me will beat me. Please help me." Her expression sharpens as her protective instincts kick in. How dare they bully a mute out in the open like this, she fumes internally. Without giving it a second thought, she grabs him and takes him straight to the nearest public security building. She explains her theory to the officer. He has no ID, so it's possible he was trafficked into the mountains as a child and only recently escaped. As they speak, the foxman munches on the dog food she bought earlier, holding it like it's the most natural thing in the world. The officer listens patiently and agrees that her theory could be true, adding that there have been several similar cases recently. However, he also notes that without any proof or visible harm, and considering that selling local goods wouldn't cause obvious health damage, it's difficult to open a case. Kaylen turns to him and catches his grateful smile, eyes soft and warm with appreciation. It throws her off guard. Could he really have been trafficked? She wonders, still thinking about how sweet his cries and smile were. The officer wraps up by asking for her phone number in case they uncover more details later, and advises her to stay cautious. Economic troubles are making things worse, and more cases are cropping up. After they leave, he continues to follow her closely. He had eaten the dog food she handed him while she was speaking for him at the station, and now he trails her loyally. She turns back and tells him that he doesn't need to follow her anymore, but he says nothing, just keeps walking beside her. As they stroll, a girl walks by with a dog, and he immediately turns, growling low in his throat. That makes it the 4th time he's acted this way toward a dog. Kaylen can't ignore it anymore. This guy is really odd. I helped him out of goodwill, but I feel like I'm being followed by an animal, she mutters in her thoughts. And just as she's thinking that, a strange realization begins to form. If I had to describe him as an animal, he's like some kind of canine, she admits to herself, her face twisting with confusion. We're introduced to Kaylen as she stares at the guy who's been sticking to her like glue. She can't shake off the strange feeling that he acts more like an animal than a person, especially with how he moves and watches her. Since he doesn't talk, the thought only grows stronger. Even though it might be rude, she wants to test it out, so she smacks her tongue a few times, hoping he'll respond the same way and prove her theory right. But instead, he starts crying. We get to know that the sound reminds him of the moment she saved him during a snowstorm. Back then, she had wrapped him in a blanket and made that same sound. He feels touched that she still remembers it, even though she isn't expecting such a reaction. She quietly wonders why he's tearing up. Just when we think she might back off, she suddenly lights up with an idea. He showed up in such a unique way, and it hits her. He'd make a perfect base for her male lead. She quickly pulls out her phone, excited. She tells him to wait as she dials her chief editor. When he picks up, she nervously explains that she's got a new beginning for her novel and has improved the male lead's character. She has no clue how he'll react, but 15 minutes later, we find her listening to him say it's fabulous. He promises to get her some ad resources the next day, but then asks how she came up with such interesting plots. Not wanting to reveal the truth, she simply says it came from a spark of inspiration. However, things take a sharp turn when he suggests something bold. He tells her the female lead can take the male lead home and that the novel can start with a bit of spice. She isn't thrilled. She worries it might be unsafe since the female lead lives alone, and after all, he's still a stranger. But he brushes it off, saying the readers pay for danger and romance. He ends the call by asking for the first 3 chapters by tomorrow. She gets annoyed, especially because he's always pushing strong ideas without asking how she feels about them. His words trigger old memories, how she was once misunderstood, insulted, and even ignored just for being curious. People thought Maya couldn't have stolen from her, and even if she did, Kaylen's work wasn't good enough to matter anyway. So now, she decides it's her moment to fight back. Turning to the guy, she confidently asks if he has anywhere to go. When he doesn't reply, she tells him to stay with her for a while. If she's going to act crazy, she might as well go all out. She takes him to her apartment in a tall building, and once they step out of the elevator, she sets some ground rules. No breaking the furniture because it's rented, and no bullying her family. He seems amazed by all the high-tech stuff in the city. As they enter her home, he starts to wonder if someone else lives with her. But then she calls out with a cheerful tone, "Leo, I'm home." And out of nowhere, a spotted cat leaps straight into her arms. She smiles brightly, cuddling the animal and saying how much she missed it, even going on about how its texture is the best in the world. She turns to him and says that Leo is friendly, even asking if he'd like to hug him. But when she sees the fear on his face, she's caught off guard. To her, it's just a cat, but to him, it looks like a leopard, a real predator. The cat, recognizing him as a fox, tells him to behave and come in for a cuddle. Even though he remembers being chased by a leopard once, he carefully takes Leo into his hands. But before anything else can happen, the cat hops off his hands like a flash, first to the wall, then to the ground. Kaylen laughs, telling him it's the first time she's seen Leo actually greet someone, so maybe Leo likes him. She then offers him a pair of her own slippers, since she doesn't have any for men. She gives him a mini tour, showing him the kitchen next. She warns that if he can't cook, he shouldn't mess with anything there. It's way too tiring to clean up. He's just happy that her scent is everywhere in the house. She then shows him a room of his own. He's shocked, especially because he used to sleep in a cold cave. There are also boxes in the room, and she warns him not to touch them. She says they're important to her, even if she doesn't use them anymore. When she mentions the boxes, he sees a soft blue sadness coming from her, and he wonders if this is an ability the mountain god gave him. He finds himself thinking about what color would appear if she ever felt truly happy. She notices him staring into space and snaps him out of it. She reminds him that he won't be staying there for free. He quickly stretches out the ginseng he brought with him, thinking it might be an offering, but she tells him it's not about that. She doesn't need the ginseng. What she needs is him. She reveals that she's an online novel writer and wants to use him as the model for her new male lead. She explains that she'll need to observe him from all angles, and how much she needs depends on where the story goes. She also casually mentions that she might need to observe his body too. Her words echo something the crows once told him, that if she ever wants to study his body, he should respond and be prepared to please her. As she's trying to think about what he might eat, he quietly takes off his shirt, folds it neatly, places the scarf on top, and kneels down. In his mind, he wonders if she'll like what she sees. We're introduced to a scene that's both strange and funny. A man, who used to be a fox, stays kneeling on the floor while Kaylen stares at him in shock. Her heart jumps the moment she sees a strange man undressing right in front of her. Fear and confusion rise in her chest. But as soon as she notices how shy and nervous he looks, her mind drifts to what the police once told her about his past. She begins to imagine that he might have been hurt while being trafficked, and maybe that's why he doesn't speak. The moment he takes off his clothes just because she mentioned food, she starts to picture a very sad life in the mountains, thinking it must have been really hard for him. In her mind, she even comes up with the idea that he was muted by his captors to keep him quiet, even though none of this actually happened. Just when we think it couldn't get any weirder, her cat, Leo, hears the noise and rushes in. The second he sees the half-naked human kneeling like a servant, Leo leaps straight at him. He smacks the guy across the face, bounces off the wall like some kind of gymnast, and looks ready to finish him off. She quickly tells them both to behave, and without much fuss, announces that she's going to her room to write. Before closing the door, she warns them not to disturb her or they'll regret it. She then heads to her room, lets out a deep breath, and gets ready to work. Even though she hates staying up late, she knows nighttime is the best moment for writing, especially when the city is finally quiet. That's when her angry memories come rushing back. We now get a peek into her pain. The guy she liked betrayed her. He claimed he and Maya weren't lovers, but still chose to be with her. On top of that, Maya's father tried to silence her by offering a deal. If she stopped causing trouble and gave up her copyright, she could keep chasing her dream. Otherwise, she'd lose her shot at winning a big prize. Things got worse when her own parents took the money and agreed to the deal. Her mother told her to stop writing, go on blind dates, get married, and even said that her work should be sold to fix their lives. She made it clear that since they raised her, it was time she gave back. All of this flashes through her mind as her fingers hit the keyboard. With a firm resolve, she types that Maya's bad decisions destroyed her life, but now she's rising from the ruins, and revenge is coming. Meanwhile, back in the living room, Leo and the former fox are still stuck together. The guy is now sitting quietly in a corner, clearly still scared of the curious and loud cat. Leo marches over and demands to know how he got a human body. He even tugs at the guy's shirt, shouting that he wants one too, preferably with muscles and tattoos. The man quietly explains that it was the mountain god who gave him this form, so he can't share it. He's still shaken. Leo, still full of energy, asks if he has to go out and find this god himself. The man nods slowly, confirming that's the only way. Leo, whose excitement dies down the moment he realizes something unfortunate, he's never stepped foot outside the house. As a result, getting his own human body was completely out of the question. Consequently, he turns his full attention back to the fox, who's now a man, and begins interrogating him again. From the audience's POV, it's hilarious watching a small cat act like a jealous lover. He asks if the visitor's real reason for breaking in was to steal Kaylen from him, but he nervously replies that he's only here to repay a favor. He says she saved him not once, but 3 times, and he must give something back, even his life, if needed. This answer, surprisingly, only annoys Leo more. Since there's no hidden agenda, he gives up on the drama and instead orders him to earn his stay by scrubbing down the entire house. As a result, the visitor gets to work. He cleans every surface, from the spilled alcohol to the gas stove, even the toilet. And just when he thinks he's done, Leo barks at him to stay quiet. Every noise gets a scolding, and honestly, from our perspective, the scene looks like a grumpy boss and a clueless intern. By the next morning, we see Kaylen slowly getting out of bed. She had stayed up late into the night, but at least she finished the first 3 chapters of her novel. However, the late night has made her moody, and she trudges into the kitchen for coffee. What she sees next completely shocks her. The whole apartment is spotless. In fact, for the first time, the place actually feels refreshing. As she takes it all in, she wonders who could have cleaned it, and her thoughts immediately go to the stranger she had picked up. Just then, she notices a leg peeking out from behind the couch. Curiosity kicks in, and she starts walking toward it. Moreover, she also realizes something odd. Leo hasn't greeted her this morning. Could something have gone wrong while she was asleep? Finally, when she gets to the couch, she finds them both lying there, fast asleep. The fox turned human, and the overprotective cat snuggled up together on the floor. We can't help but find it funny. Just when we thought Leo hated him, they're suddenly all cuddles. She looks at the scene and tilts her head, wondering when they got this close. And just when we think she's going to get emotional or angry, a random idea hits her. With wide eyes and a growing smile, she suddenly decides she absolutely has to include a cat in her novel. We're introduced to our female lead right inside the office of Deepe's story, where she's just submitted her first 3 chapters. The chief editor, now sitting casually with a cup of tea and a cigarette in hand, is completely hooked. He's amazed by her idea of a male lead who was trafficked into the mountains and now acts like a dog. Even more, the cat character wins him over and he praises how it guarantees popularity. She's stunned, especially since he's never praised any writer before. But then he casually confesses something unexpected. Without cats, he would have turned to contraband instead. As if that wasn't enough, he suddenly changes the subject and hands her a tablet, her new label, Evil Girl of Literature. She's not happy, but he insists her fierce writing is exactly what the younger audience needs and could challenge even Maya, whose father happens to be a big shot. She questions his logic, but he claims he's only giving her a reason to fight the industry. Then, without flinching, he drops a bomb. He's forbidden from advertising her novel. She's shocked, and the sound of her banging the table sends her tea flying. In the next scene, we see her storming out of the building, irritation written all over her face. She's been told a new intern editor will be handling her work from now on, and he apparently knows nothing. On top of that, she's on her own. The chief editor keeps his promise of resources but warns her she must stop writing about pure love if she wants to succeed. These thoughts swirl through her mind as she enters the elevator, now pressing the buttons like they've offended her. The frustration keeps building and her thoughts spiral. Could the new editor be planted as a spy? Her curses slip out under her breath as she finally reaches her room. But right then, she's greeted by a strange scene. The guy in her house is kneeling with Leo, her cat, sitting on his head. She scoops Leo up and tells him to stop kneeling and undressing for food because he wasn't trafficked. As she walks in, she's shocked to see food already served. He had cooked, and she's genuinely surprised. When she suggests he could have just ordered takeout with the money she gave him, his mood shifts. His watery eyes and silence say it all. He thinks she prefers food from delivery guys. Trying to cheer him up, she agrees to eat. While they eat, he kneels next to her again, and this time it irritates her. She tells him to stop kneeling and just eat properly. Later, she sits on the couch, staring at the ceiling and reflecting. The food is delicious. It's been a long time since she's had something fresh and home-cooked. Watching him do the dishes beside Leo, she starts to soften. He feels like a mute servant, gentle, caring, even a bit awkward, but strangely comforting. For once, she feels cared for, and her anger melts away. Just when she's about to doze off, something jerks her back to reality. He's trying to massage her leg. Leo, annoyed, scolds him in cat language she can't hear, even hitting him with his paws. The guy's clumsy, confused, and completely clueless, which gets her thinking. She studies him more closely now. He's muscular, teary-eyed, soft-hearted, and totally wrong for an erotic male lead. Her brain races through images of him in various outfits, but it all just seems ridiculous. She wonders what kind of female lead would match such a guy. Then it hits her. She herself has no real-life experience with intimacy. In fact, she's always hated men and stayed guarded because of her past. Her earlier belief in pure love has slowly started to lose ground ever since she began writing for online platforms. The harsh truth is, blood, drama, and bold content dominate the charts. Even Maya had added such themes to her own works. She knows she needs to change her style if she wants to stay in the top ranks. But the big question remains, should she explore a flirtation with him? Even though she's completely inexperienced, her mind loops in endless circles, weighing every angle. We're introduced to a strange yet playful moment as she quietly observes the guy, who was once a fox kneeling near her. After thinking for a bit, she decides to rub his hair to see how he reacts. Instead of moving away, he leans closer, fully enjoying it. She admits he's really good at what he does, and then without thinking much, she places her hand on his cheek. Things take a sharp turn when he starts licking it slowly. She's caught off guard, especially when her hand ends up in his mouth, and she pulls it out in a rush. Her thoughts spiral. She wonders how things would be easier if he was still a dog. It feels too much now that he's a man. Yet, he's confused, remembering how happy she seemed when she first rescued him during a snowstorm. Back then, he was cold, weak, and just a fox wrapped in her scarf. Feeling guilty for being helpless, he lowers his head onto her lap. She flinches for a moment, but allows it, wondering why she doesn't push him away like she usually would. In the next scene, we get to see her trying to understand her own reactions. She knows that if any guy ever got this close, she would be disgusted, but with him it feels different. Maybe it's because he still acts a bit like an animal. As she runs her hand through his soft hair, she thinks about how readers might also want to touch it. She leans in closer, noticing the texture is oddly familiar, as if she's felt it before. Suddenly, he lets out a loud meow, surprising her. The peace doesn't last, though, because Leo jumps in with full force, hissing and swinging his claws. The fox guy dodges them, but ends up on the floor, clearly shaken. Now cuddled beside her, Leo looks proud while she realizes how scared this strong guy is of a small cat. Then she notices his clothes, worn out and dirty, reminding her of harsh memories from his past. She sighs, scratches her head, and finally makes up her mind to let him sleep on a proper bed. She tosses him a large shirt, asking him to take off the tattered one. He lifts it to check it out and sees a crying fox on it. It's from a brand she likes called the Ugly Fox series. She explains how she couldn't get the normal-sized one before it sold out, so all she has is this oversized version no one else wanted. He doesn't seem to mind, though, and that reaction surprises her. Most people in the city are used to better things, but he looks really happy. As if that wasn't enough, she suddenly remembers something important. She never asked for his name. When she brings it up, he smiles but doesn't say anything she can understand. Instead, he points at the fox image on the shirt. She guesses it might be connected, thinking maybe his name is Power Fox because of the way he lights up when she says it. It seems to fit perfectly, and she's glad he likes it. As a result, she decides to take the next step. He needs to be clean if he's going to live like a city person, so she shows him the bathroom, explaining how to wash himself and where the bathrobe is. Then she leaves him there and heads up to the roof. Now seated with her laptop under a cloudy night sky, inspiration starts flowing again. She's nearly done with the chapters for her upcoming novel, and they're going to be reviewed by a new intern editor tomorrow. However, the thought makes her uneasy. She hates dealing with editors, especially after what happened before. She reflects on how editors are meant to help, not destroy. Her first love was also her first editor, the one who encouraged her writing and made her feel seen. But that same person ended up breaking her trust and dreams. And now, as she stares into the city lights, it's clear those wounds still remain. We're introduced to a girl who's always loved the quiet things nobody talks about, like old books, rare stories, and couples from shows that never went mainstream. Sadly, no one around her ever seemed to understand those interests. Because of that, she spent a long time feeling alone. She was into pure literature, which she often described as sensational, even comparing its mood to spring rain and fallen peach blossoms. Most days, she'd sit happily at her desk, surrounded by books, writing down whatever ideas popped into her head. Her classmates didn't get it. They had all sorts of nicknames for her, like a certain dramatic playwright, a lofty girl, or someone completely out of touch. She had hoped that, after joining the English literature department, things would be different. But even there, everyone only talked about trendy shows and which side characters they adored. The stylish art students, with their pretty looks and flowing traditional wear, barely noticed her. She wasn't into TV, games, online novels, or popular comics, and she didn't care about dressing up either. That made her the odd one out. It felt dim and dark and kind of hopeless. What she wanted most was someone to talk to about her true passions, someone who actually got her. And just when you think she's going to stay invisible forever, something happens. One day, she bumps into a guy and her papers go flying. He helps her pick them up, even catching one mid-air. He looks at it and is clearly interested. We're surprised when he says the words she's been longing to hear. He thinks her writing is amazing. Turns out he's an editor at a publishing company. He wants to see more, and they exchange contact info. From there, things move fast. She shares all her stories, and they start to talk more often. One day, they're sitting on a bench, and he offers her some jasmine tea. While sipping, he tells her about a prize for love-themed literature and asks if she'd like to try for it. She lights up and says she's always dreamed of that award. The prize is a big deal, something all writers admire. He explains that he's from a small town trying to make it big and wants to help publish a book that wins. It's his dream, too. For the first time, she feels seen. He tells her to just focus on her words, and she does, feeling warm, inspired, and even a little fond of him. We get to see her fall into that comforting space, enjoying the support and encouragement. He brings her hot jasmine tea again and shares updates about the competition. Everything feels like a dream. But as time goes on, we learn that she had missed something important, like when he talked about having a foothold in the city. Later, the truth hits. He wanted money, an apartment, and maybe even a rich wife so he could skip all the hard work. When all his conditions lined up, he handed over her writings, not to help her, but to impress someone else. That person was his dream woman, Maya, and that moment marked the beginning of her pain. Looking back, she cringes just remembering it. The warm scent of jasmine from those early days now makes her feel sick. And as if that wasn't enough, she catches a strange smell in the air one night. It turns out to be coming from a cloth dropped by a character called Power Fox. It's been ruined by, you won't believe it, cat poop. Totally grossed out, she can't believe the red scarf tied to it looks so familiar. The smell is unbearable. She quickly wraps it up and tosses everything into the trash. She tries to laugh it off, but deep down, it's a reminder of how something sweet turned into something rotten. We're introduced to someone who's not your everyday house guest. Power Fox, yes, that's the name Kaylen gave him, steps into the bathroom, ready for a bath. As he takes off his clothes, he can't help but smile at how kind his savior has been to him. She gave him food, shelter, and even a cute fox-patterned shirt. He turns to the mirror and stares at the reflection staring back. For someone who's only known fur, this human body is still a shock. Yet somehow he finds it fascinating. From what he sees, it's like viewing himself the way she sees him. He remembers how Mr. Crow and the mountain god called this form perfect. But it bothers him that she doesn't seem impressed. In fact, she now keeps her distance, unlike before when she used to hug him warmly in his fox form. Just when we think it's a quiet, reflective moment, in walks Leo, and not in a friendly mood. He throws him a sharp glare and yells at him for staring at his own body, calling him a pervert. Shocked, he asks when he came in, only to be told to call him Mr. Leo. Nervously, he agrees, pulling the shower curtain around himself. Leo doesn't stop there. He accuses him of being full of strange intentions, warns him to stay away from Kaylen, and even bans him from using anything but the cheap soap in the bathroom. And as if that wasn't enough, Leo threatens to end him if he tries anything funny with her. He, however, completely misses the point and gets the wild idea that Leo must be in love. That only makes things worse. The mood lightens, just slightly, as he lifts Leo up and suggests a rub-down in exchange for stories about Kaylen. He wants to know everything, what life in the city is like for her, what she enjoys doing, and more. But Leo clearly isn't having any of it. With a cold stare, he says he hates showers and stomps off, leaving the poor guy soaked and scolded. We watch him finish his bath, admiring how nice the warm water feels, and he even thinks Kaylen might like him more now. Feeling proud, he moves on to wash the dirty laundry, especially her red scarf. But then, just when we think the day's done, he realizes the scarf is missing. Panicking, he asks Leo, who says it was old and probably thrown away. That's when things take a turn. We find out this scarf isn't just any scarf. It's his most precious gift from Kaylen. It holds her scent, her warmth, her memory. Many animals wanted it, but he always protected it. It was his only comfort during long, lonely days. He rushes outside, frantically searching until he finally sees it being tossed into the back of a recycle truck. Wearing nothing but a bathrobe, he races after it, determined to save it. But the truck picks up speed. Suddenly, and without warning, he ends up in front of another speeding truck. Time seems to slow until the female lead appears, calling out his name and pulling him to safety, her shopping bags falling to the ground. We're introduced to our scene in the middle of a small but tense moment. She pulls him out of the street just in time, bruising her hands in the process. Thankfully, he had only just stepped onto the road. Both of them end up sitting on the floor, and while he is frozen from shock, she somehow keeps calm. even though she tries to act cool, we get to know that she's wondering why he's running around in just a bathrobe. As if that's not confusing enough, he suddenly realizes the scarf he chased isn't as important as the person right in front of him. He's upset that she got hurt because of him. Holding her bruised hand with tears flowing like he's the one injured, he feels horrible. Now she's getting annoyed, asking if his tears are because of the clothes, but when she sees the look in his eyes, she falls silent. Just when we think we've seen it all, the mood shifts completely. His tearful eyes hold emotions she can't explain, and his face shows a kind of resolve she's never seen on anyone before. At that moment, she starts to feel like there's some kind of past between them, as if fate had been hiding it until now. That strange yet touching moment becomes the inspiration behind the page she writes that night. She includes every piece of it in her novel, writing that this was the start of something between the boy and the girl, something deep enough to cross time and land in the future. The next day, she gives this draft to Shanna Leonard, the intern editor, who absolutely loves it and can't wait to read more. However, when she asks about what happens next in the story, Kaylen simply says she doesn't know. Surprised, Shanna tries to act like she understands, but Kaylen can already tell that the girl is inexperienced. When she asks her if she knows how to be a good editor, the intern quickly answers with book-smart responses, clearly thinking it's enough. However, Kaylen throws a curveball. What about top 10 authors and what they really need? Shanna answers confidently, only to get shut down completely. That's when we learn what's really going on. Once an author hits the top 10, it's not about talent anymore. It's about business, money, and powerful backers. Kaylen has just gotten onto the rankings, but knows she could be kicked out at any time without resources and support. She used to have a wild editor who gave her everything she needed, but now that he's gone, she's lost everything. She tells Shanna that she isn't ready, and advises her to find an easier department before the work ruins her passion. But the story doesn't end there. Shanna, not ready to give up, pleads with her to wait and even lightly grabs her gown. She begs to help and says she'd rather work hard in the city than be pushed into a marriage back home. Still, Kaylen walks away, saying she can't count on someone whose whole career could vanish in a second. Shanna continues to text her afterward, sending updates about how she begged the chief editor and the publicity department for support, even suggesting cafes they should visit together. Yet Kaylen never replies. However, just when she thought Shanna had given up, a new message pops up, an invitation to a forum for prize-winning authors and sponsors. Shocked, Kaylen wonders how a new intern even managed to get something like that. And right then, we start to think, maybe this determined girl is exactly what Kaylen needs after all. We're introduced to our lead as she finally reacts to a message from her intern editor. After seeing it, she asks her where she got the invitation form from. She's shocked to hear the answer. The chief editor gave it to her. And to make it even more surprising, her intern editor says she did some digging and confirms that this event is not a scam. When asked if it came at a cost, the reply is unexpected. Apparently, the chief editor just asked for a list of the best cat cafes in the city. So in a way, it felt more like a gift than a trade. Still, there's confusion written all over her face. Something doesn't feel right. How could someone in his position hand out an invite to such a big forum that easily? More than that, she knows his superiors wouldn't allow him to help her, especially after everything that's happened. So, why did he do it? She's caught in her own thoughts, wondering what hidden plan he could possibly have. At that very same moment, in a different place, her former chief editor and Maya are having their own private conversation. He's just handed over our girl's latest manuscript, and now the Maya is going through the pages. Her eyes are fixed on it, and after reading a bit, she admits that it's amazing. She also confesses that no matter how many times she reads our girl's work, it always leaves her surprised. There's something about how bold and passionate she is, especially in the world of online novels, that makes her nervous. And just when we think that's the end of it, the chief editor questions her decision. If she feels that way, why did she even bother giving out the invitation? She could have blocked her path like she's done to others before. But the female lead is different. With a soft smile, she explains that the writer holds a special place in her life. Thanks to her, she could achieve so much. So no matter the competition, she's not just any author. She's someone who matters in more ways than one. As the man listens, he starts to piece together how deep their history might go. It's interesting to him, especially since both women act so differently. One is open and straightforward, while the other hides everything behind a calm face. He tells her that her books are just as good, but she only laughs, saying she just used the right tools. Things like books, computers, money, and even people. All of them helped her rise. Her words carry a strange feeling, especially when she says it with a wicked expression. Before leaving, she thanks him for the help and promises to pass his request to her father. He accepts her thanks and watches her walk away. Yet, even as she disappears from view, something doesn't sit right with him. Despite her politeness, she always gives him a strange feeling, like there's something dark hiding under her beautiful smile. As if that wasn't enough, we now get a glimpse into her true thoughts. It turns out the female lead isn't the only person she's taken work from. Most people give in easily when faced with money or fear. They lose their values and abandon their dreams. But not this one. Instead, she's pushing back harder, and that's what makes things exciting. She wonders how long she needs to keep putting pressure before the writer breaks and becomes just like the rest. Still, deep inside, she knows this case is different. She smirks, thinking that although she plans to win, the writer is unpredictable. She ends her thoughts with a firm belief. One way or another, those books will end up in her hands. Back at home, our lead is still staring at her phone with unease. The message says the forum will take place tomorrow by 5 p.m. She's clearly unsure. The whole thing feels like being invited to a fancy wedding of someone she doesn't know. All the top writers who'll be there have styles totally different from hers. So what's the point? She keeps scratching her head, pacing, and going back and forth. She can't decide if she should go or not. Not far away, Leo, her cat and power fox, are quietly watching her. Leo sighs, saying that she must be in trouble. Sadly, he's not able to help when it comes to human problems, so he turns to the other and demands why he isn't doing anything. After all, he has a human body. But instead of acting, the other one is too busy daydreaming about his savior, completely caught up in how brave and good-looking she is. That annoys the cat, who bites him to bring him back to his senses. He finally snaps out of it and says that even if he wanted to help, he doesn't know what she's dealing with, and he can't even understand human speech. The cat proudly says he'll find out in 3 minutes. He walks closer as she gets on a call with her former editor, the chief editor. She tells him that if he doesn't call back, she'll assume he's no longer alive. His answer is cold but clear. He's not her editor anymore, so it would be wrong to keep bothering him. When she asks about the invitation, he says he's too old to go to such events, and her new editor was the one who really wanted it. He did it as a favor, but then he gives her a strong message. If she believes she doesn't belong there, then maybe she shouldn't go. If fear is already holding her back now, then she might never move forward. His words sink deep, and she takes a long breath. Finally, she makes a decision. She's going to go. She tells herself that someone like her, with no power or background, doesn't have the luxury of picking chances. Every step counts, no matter how small or strange it seems. So she gets up and starts looking for something proper to wear. Power Fox turns to the cat and asks if he now knows what's going on. But for once, the cat has no reply. He stays silent. Even though he couldn't understand the whole thing, something doesn't feel right. His animal senses are telling him that she's heading somewhere dangerous. And for a cat, danger always means something serious. Maybe it's not just a fancy forum after all. Maybe it's something much bigger than any of them realize. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and ensure to hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time.